Okay, so I'm just going to talk about why EUCAP decided to do an ABA survey and a little bit about the survey format. I'm going to share with you some results as at 15th of November. That's just some high-level snapshot results. We haven't done any full analysis, and the survey is still open and it will close at the end of the month. I'll talk a bit about who has participated in the survey and also share some of the findings. And I'll finish off with saying what's next. So why did EUCAP decide to do an ABA survey? Well, I think from listening to the first two speakers, it's quite clear that ABA is controversial, as are approaches and methods that incorporate ABA methods in them. We know that ABA is commonly used on autistic people, and it's very widespread in the USA, but it is growing outside the USA in places such as Europe and individual countries within Europe, and wider, definitely. Autistic advocates and allies are spending considerable efforts addressing issues of ABA and advocating. So this is clearly an area where there is a need for some more focus. And we're not aware of any other survey on ABA that is like this survey with its analysis and the extent of its reach. It's been translated into 15 languages. We hope that what comes out of this will be new information that autistic people's organisations can use, as well as communities, researchers, policymakers, to further the evidence and help platform additional scientific research in this area. So a little bit about the survey. The survey opened on the 29th of October this year, and it will close at the end of the month. It's just an online survey. It can be accessed on the EUCAP website. It's been shared with member organisations and across social media. It's not formalised scientific research as such, but it's just an independent survey that we're conducting on behalf of EUCAP. All the questions in this survey are relevant, regardless of the view that you may have about ABA. There are 15 multiple choice questions, and there are 3 long open questions within that. In terms of who the survey is for, we're asking that only autistic people complete the survey, whether or not you have a formal diagnosis or you self-identify as autistic, because we are seeking to gain autistic people's views, which can then guide the efforts of not just EUCAP in this area, but also provide information to others that can be of use. And the engagement and participation of autistic people is consistent with what EUCAP is for, in order to hear direct voices of autistic people that will help promote the welfare of autistic rights, and very much in the spirit of human rights and nothing about us without us. The survey focuses on Europe, but we're very interested in responses from elsewhere. So in terms of who has responded to date, it's had good engagement, not just with the short questions, but an incredible level of comments in the open questions as well. So as at 15th of November, we've had 607 responses. Almost every question was completed by those who responded. And today, we've had more than 100 since then at this moment. So as you can see, we've had a good number of responses from across the world, mainly in Europe, which is the target and as expected, but also a high level from America, US, where we know that ABA is quite widespread and mainstream. In terms of who has responded, 79.4% of those who responded have responded to say that they had a formal diagnosis, that they were diagnosed as autistic. So that's a chunky number, that's 482. So what we're reflecting in here is 482 who have a diagnosis of autism, and the remainder are self-diagnosed as autistic. self-identify is the language I like to use. And when we look at the age of who responded, we do have a significant number of young people who responded, under 25. So 14% were under 25. 80% were equally in categories between 25 years old and 60 years old, and then a small percentage who were older. In terms of gender, as we often see with surveys that are online, females tend to respond more than males, and we see that here. What is also expected really is the extent to which autistic people are not identifying as male or female, feminine or male, and we see 9% identify as non-binary and 9% as other, and included with another is agender and gender fluid. So one of the multiple choice questions is about the extent to which you have experience of ABA and the nature of that experience. So on the left-hand side, this chart is showing the experience of having received ABA, so having had ABA, been in ABA yourself, or a family member, or knowing someone personally who had received ABA. And the chart on the right is about those who have delivered themselves ABA, or know someone else personally who has delivered ABA. And we can see really the key boxes here are those in yellow, the light yellow, and then the more orangey version. These are people who have received, who have that experience of ABA personally. So they're not insignificant. And we have less people who have delivered ABA, which is what we would expect. So this chart here is just pulling out the responses to be positive to having that experience. These are not mutually exclusive categories. So we had people responding to say they received ABA, they learned about it, they had read about ABA, observed it before, or read about others' experiences on social media. So none of these are mutually exclusive. And we can just see that the 121 personally received ABA, 130 had a family member who received ABA, and there were small amounts who delivered. Looking at the learning about ABA, as I suppose expected, relatively few have a formal ABA certification. A significant number, over 3/4, had been learning about ABA as part of their experience of ABA through themselves reading literature, observing ABA in practice. And I think that's quite in line with autistic ways of sort of wanting to really get behind topics of interest and read and understand about them. About the same amount also we're learning about other people's experience of ABA through social media. What was interesting, and again, a lot of information has to be analysed further, but there was only less than 1 in 10 had only learned about ABA through reading about others' experiences of it on social media. So more than 9 in 10 had broader direct experience of ABA. In terms of what people's general view of ABA, and I think this is in line with other surveys that we've had before on ABA, only less than 5% were strongly in favour or strongly in favour of ABA. There was a few, 6.5%, were neither in favour or against. They were open-minded about ABA. The extent to which people were against ABA was high, again, not unexpected. And 8.7% didn't know enough about ABA in order to respond. So clearly, this is showing a picture really reflecting some of the concerns that we heard in the speakers before about feeling. And these views were looking at the experience that people had of ABA before completing it. You know, these aren't just gut feels or people having a view based on nothing. You know, it's real, people have had significant experience. One of the questions was asking about, you know, are you aware of any organisations that have position statements on ABA? And 211 respondents, as at the 15th of November, said they were aware, and 95 different organisations were listed. What gut feel is that we're seeing more and more organisations putting statements about ABA out there. Some of these, around 10 to 15, were obviously ABA providers or ABA regulators. And there is analysis to be done. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, the extent of what the positions are saying for each of these. But we are seeing more and more organisations publishing this sort of thing. So one of the questions just said, you know, are you concerned about ABA and to what extent? So what we can see here is that, you know, autistic communities are very concerned about ABA. I mean, it's a concern that's across, you know, a huge majority. So about 88%, 87% are concerned, whether a little concerned or significantly concerned. And we can see that a few people, 6% had no concern, and 6% had no opinion. So we looked at the nature, we asked for any nature of concerns, and we had, I've got lots of pop-ups on my screen here. So as with all the open questions, the engagement was very high. We had 389 comments about nature of concerns. So some of the themes, there's no thematic, the analysis needs to be done to ensure these are general themes throughout, but pulling out a flavour of some people's, the nature of some people's concerns here. So there are 15 comments about nature of concerns for those that said they were in favour of ABA. So concerns included the fact that, you know, people, that the protest against ABA is meaning that families are being left without support. Another concern was that harmful things that are not actually ABA are being done in the name of ABA. Another concern was that advocacy groups of self-diagnosed autistic people were dominating the narrative. And there's also concern about the growth of the field and the difficulty in maintaining oversight and consistency with practice. There was so 315 comments about the nature of concerns against ABA. So just pulling out to give a flavour, one of the concerns was, you know, people don't realise the harm and trauma ABA can cause and think they're trying to help. One respondent said, I worry that these techniques are hidden with the other therapies. A comment was that, you know, ABA and PBS is positive behaviour support that uses ABA. So ABA, PBS perpetuates a power over attitude to disabled people, and that the sector continues to ignore autistic voices. So very much in line with the themes that were coming out from Owen's research as well. The concern was that the fundamental goal of ABA is compliance, and an autistic person will ignore their bodies and needs and substituting the needs, those for the needs of the therapist, teacher, parent, or adult. So another question was asking, how can EUCAP support you with regards to ABA? And people could select as many as they wished, and on average 2 were selected. So 1 in 5, around 1 in 5 said they don't need any support. A quarter said that they would like support to understand more about ABA. Around a third said they would like EUCAP to facilitate more joined up advocacy and collaboration to address this sort of area. Almost half said they would like additional support to understand, about ethical interventions and supports for autistic people. Over half wanted a EUCAP position statement on ABA. And then we have other. There was quite a few comments there's over about 100 comments on what other things, 91 comments on what other sort of supports. A lot of that, some of them were sort of asking for a strong position statement against ABA. Others were saying to encourage research in areas to understand more the harms. So this is supporting the idea that there is a concern and there needs to be more supports and actions that we can all do. So just want to wrap up with what next. So the survey is open till the 30th of November. We're aiming to publish at least initial results by the 31st of March next year. And we are aiming to provide summary information that advocates and autistic people's use organisations can use in their advocacy efforts and in their work. And we're hoping that this output of this survey can be used as a sort of a stepping stone to encourage more scientific, robust research in the area of, why certain methods are harmful, what can help, and also be useful for practitioners and researchers. And again, very much in the spirit of nothing about us without us, understanding what autistic people feel and experiences of topics are relevant for, should be incorporated in all sort of decision-making bodies and influencing decisions. So we'll be looking to get something out then for early, by the end of first quarter next year. Please do also join in and respond to the survey if you haven't already. And there's a link here that perhaps can be shared in the chat too, if it hasn't. So that's all I wish to say on that. Thank you very much. And I am around for questions now as well.